joined the RCMP when I was 22 years old. I believe I went into depot 20, possibly 23. So it would have been 2005. And then I graduated in 2006, posted to Cochrane in February. I believe I turned 24 that year in 2006. I had actually come out when I was 16 years old. So I was actually still in high school at the time. I've always been kind of I'm 6'1" and, always been a bit of a bigger guy, whether I exercised or not. So I actually really never even had problems in high school with it, even though I went to a North End Edmonton high school, which would be considered a bit more rough. Never really had any problems there. No one bothered me. I had a group of friends that were supportive. And so I thought, well, if this is going to be life coming out, actually really isn't that bad. I was one of the types of people that, if it comes up in conversation, great, but I don't go with a banner waving over my head to everyone saying, announcing my sexuality. I felt the more I treated it normally, like anyone else does, if it comes up in conversation, that's kind of how I would introduce myself and just not make a big deal out of it. So I wasn't aware that the purge was a thing in the federal service or in the RCMP when I joined. When I was about 18 years old, I became friends with a police officer who was in the RCMP. He was a corporal. And at the time he had, I think, about 20 years of service. So he had joined when he was 18, and he told me that he married a woman and had 2 children, but he knew he was gay all along, certainly questioning right from the beginning, but he wanted to keep up the appearance that he was straight so that he could get into the RCMP, because from what he told me right on the application form or somewhere in the application process was that if you come out as gay or if you're openly gay, that the RCMP will not hire you because they consider it a security threat. So I wasn't aware that the purge was a thing. That's at that point all I knew, but he said then at around 1995 is where that stopped happening, I believe, and so that they then allowed openly gay members to serve in the RCMP. So when I first realized that my coworkers and or colleagues would not necessarily be as accepting and laissez-faire with the whole idea of having a gay troop mate was right from the beginning in depot. So depot, of course, being the training academy in Regina, where we had 6 months training. So I went there in August, and my troop consisted of, I believe, about 30 troop mates, and the majority of them were male. I think I want to say 22 were male and 8 were female. For the most part, the female troop mates were, in fact, as is the case usually with most gay men, you end up making more friends with women because they're usually more accepting. And so I never really had a problem with any of my female troop mates. It was the male troop mates where pretty much right away I started to see that there were issues with, both, I guess there were issues, whether it was advertently, they were like outright displaying them, or sometimes they would just be things that you would kind of understand in passing that they had some issues with it. I believe the purge ended only 10 years before I joined, and so there was a lot of the same mentality of the people who were in during the purge and actively felt that was a good policy. Those same people were still there when I was in the RCMP. And so I started to feel that it was going to be an issue where right when I got there, immediately the tone, I guess the general way that I was treated was, I would say, less than respectful. Certainly, what continued are the words that get tossed around, the fag, the he's so gay or that's so gay. There was a term, in fact, 10 code. So of course, as you know, police use 10 codes to, 10-4, for example, to say affirmative. And one of the codes is 1030, and 1030 is a code for a caution code. So if you're searching someone up on the police database and they have, let's say, a 1030 Victor, that means that caution, this person is violent, V for Victor for violent. Or 1030 Foxtrot meaning F and firearms. So the joke that went around, in fact, I've found out quite a few detachments, is they would refer to gay members as 1030 Golf, and golf means gay. So it was a code word for saying, a person is, caution, watch out for him. So, would be used like in a change room. Oh, don't be in the change room with that 1030 golf. He's, you know, or he's a 1030 golf kind of thing. You know, of course they would laugh at it, and it was funny to them kind of thing. And, you know, you try to make light of the situation as best as possible, try to say, yeah, call yourself that, and joke around with it. Realistically, it should have been stopped right from the beginning, because even though you try to, I guess you're doing whatever you can to try and fit in with these people, it's self-deprecating at that point. And as a young guy, I didn't really realize the impact, in fact, that it was having on me emotionally. Probably one of the worst things that I experienced was a sexual assault from my corporal, who I directly reported to. And he was, I would say, about 50 years old. You know, so none of the other constables had ever, gone to the point of any type of assault or sexual assault. But I had received a lot of harassment from my corporal, sexual harassment, whether it be phone calls at midnight or 1 a.m. inviting me over into his hot tub because he had a bunch of naked guys there. And this is someone who was married with two, I believe, with 2 children, married to a woman with 2 children. So, I would get drunken phone calls in the middle of the night. I, again, brushed them off. I didn't want to be the complainer. I know that people who complain, tend to be blackballed. So I really tried to maintain it as one of those, I can just brush it off. I can handle this on my own. He had jumped on top of me at one point while I was playing with the dog at the host's house. I was just, laying on the ground, kind of fooling around or playing around with the dog. And at that point, he saw the opportunity to jump on top of me and start thrusting his hips into me. And so, these are things that, of course, everyone else was laughing at. And at that point, I felt it's, this is something I can't handle on my own anymore. This is becoming something that now I'm, really quite concerned. It's become physical now. After the assault happened, I was requested by my detachment commander to see a psychologist. They did do an investigation into the corporal who had assaulted me. They'd placed him on desk duty until the conclusion of the investigation. I was asked repeatedly if I'd like him to be charged criminally. This very well could be someone who is in the closet gay. He has 2 kids similar to that corporal that I met when I was 18. I don't think the criminal code is the best way to actually handle this situation. I think, for everything, all the injustices that I had suffered, this could just potentially make it worse for him. So even though he was my attacker, it's something where I really just did not want him to be charged criminally. I felt that it really could make things really bad for him. It couldn't provide the help that he actually needed in order to get over this. So I declined to have any criminal charges pressed on him. And because of that, the investigation was concluded. I was never told what the conclusion of the investigation was. Essentially, they believed that even though there were witnesses to that, my coworkers, that it happened, he had received no sanctions. As I said, I was in depot. The very first thing I was told was that I'm going to have to grow a thicker skin if I'm going to want to be a successful police officer. And that really set the stage for me to kind of really know what to expect, that the actual culture of the force is what it is. I went to my corporal with what I believed was an issue that was a serious issue that I felt could be solved, and it was dismissed with you need to grow a thicker skin. I think the most important part that I think the message that I would really like to get out is, just because the policy ended in the RCMP doesn't mean that now 20 years later, 25 years later, there's been much of a change of culture. Knowing members in the RCMP right now, I'm still told of, and I still know gay members in the RCMP who are, first of all, closeted because they're so afraid to come out, and other members who are out and who are having a very difficult time. As I said, there are ones who are having less of a difficult time, and in fact, some find it enjoyable, but there's still very much the problem. The problem is very much alive, based on my experience, on the experience of friends that I know who have suffered great injustices at the hands of the RCMP. And so I think it's important to tell the story that, while we can think that a policy change is nice, and that they're not going to be doing certain things like the LGBT Purge anymore, it requires a lot more of an effort than just stopping a policy in order to change the culture and the general mindset of what is considered an old boys club. If you're not a white straight male, certainly that was the majority of the makeup of the RCMP for quite a while. if you don't fit into that category, you're going to be an outsider on the outskirts. And I still hear that that is very much the case today.